to the entertaining Talkin' Sports.
What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video as I continue to do these college profile preview videos, and I continue to look at guys that I think the New York Giants could potentially have on their radar in early round number 2 of this year's draft. Last time we did a pass rusher. This time we're going to do a pass rusher. Now, like I have said, I think the Giants could certainly look to go with a pass rusher in the second round, especially if they go with an offensive tackle in round number 1, to which a lot of my subscribers said, well, they could go defensive both. They could. I wouldn't rule anything out, especially if they try to shore up the offensive tackle position in free agency, which we'll have to wait and see if they do that, if they're able to assign Jack Conklin, someone like that. But I still think offensive line is vitally important with a second-year quarterback at Daniel Jones. Regardless, Julian Okwara, when I watch this guy play, and I'm a Notre Dame fan, I got to see him somewhat. I don't get to watch every Notre Dame game, being that I work on Saturdays. But when I watch him play, he jumps off the page. In terms of an athletic standpoint, this guy is off the charts. Now, his brother, Romeo Okwara, played for the New York Giants as an undrafted free agent for 2 years, I think, in 2016 and 17, I think it was 2016 and 17. Only recorded a sack, didn't get much time there. Went to the Lions, played very well. Had 7.5 sacks, and then he got a 2-year or 3-year contract extension with the Detroit Lions. The reason I think that Okwara went to Notre Dame is because his brother went there. So they got both brothers, and now Julian Okwara, who most say is a much more talented prospect than his brother, will hit the NFL. The reason that he's being mocked sometimes into the second round, I've seen him late first, early second, mid-second, kind of the same exact spot where you're seeing Bourne go in most of these mocks. The reason he's being mocked there, in my opinion, is because, one, he had an injury. He had a broken fibula, which caused him to miss the last 4 games of the regular season for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. 2, unlike our last prospect we look at with Bourne, the production isn't there. He only had 15 or 16 sacks over the course of his career with the Fighting Irish. Now, of course, he played opposite Tillery. Tillery was a very good pass rusher in his own right, who was drafted early in last year's draft to the LA Chargers. So that may have had something to do with the lack of production. Some of the things when I did research on this guy that I really like. 1, he's got ideal size for an outside linebacker on the edge. 6'5", 248 pounds. Now, you're not going to line him up on the D end unless you put on maybe 15 pounds of muscle, which he certainly is capable of doing. When he when he first signed with Notre Dame, I believe he weighed 210 pounds. He put on about 35 pounds or so of muscle over the course of his career with the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. So he's a hard worker, and when you watch this guy play, he does not look like he has an ounce of fat on his body. Now, the reason that I think he could certainly move up draft charts when it comes to the combine is this. I think that Julian Okwara is an athletic freak, and I think that it will lend to his skill set. I think he's going to run a good 40 time. I think he'll have a good bench press, and I could see him moving up draft charts just based off upside alone. A New York Giant who had a great combine that kind of had some question marks, being that he went to a smaller school, Jason Pierre-Paul, killed it at the combine, moved up draft charts, and the Giants took him mid-first round, and I could certainly see that if Julian Okwara is able to display that he's healthy, being the case for the edge rusher out of Notre Dame. And another thing that I noticed about him when I watched these highlights and when I watched what he did at college, guy is a very smart player. When he's trying to get a sack, he doesn't just try to tackle the quarterback. He's always trying to knock the ball out of the quarterback's hand. It is a skill that he certainly has, and you can notice it in these highlights. So go watch some film after this video and take a look at it. Really smart football player, incredibly athletic, sets the edge, and I'm going to get into some of his strengths and weaknesses that I've viewed off of draft sites, but I just wanted to give you guys a take. Sometimes when I do some research on some of these players, I fall in love with them. I fell in love with Julian Okwara. I think he is going to be a big-time talent at the NFL level, and I think he is certainly worth a gamble at number 36 overall if he's displayed that he's healthy for the New York Giants. By all accounts, he has. He's projected to be participating in the Combine in a week or two, where I think he's going to wow scouts. But we'll have to wait and see. Hopefully he doesn't wow them too much, because I would love to have him at number 36. But let's jump into some of the things about Julian Okwara and what some scouts have had to say. First thing I wanted to pull up for you guys were his statistics. Like I said, his numbers don't pop off the page. When he first got there to Notre Dame, he was undersized, and that's why he didn't play much his freshman year. Like I said, I think he was only 210 pounds. 2017, he got a little more playing time. He had 2.5 sacks. 18 was his breakout year, which is when he started to move up draft charts. A lot of people had him as a mid-first round pick going into the season. He had 8 sacks and, looked good on tape. Then this year, Even though he did miss 4 games, he regressed somewhat. Only had 4 sacks and 18 total tackles. So the numbers don't jump off the charts when you look at Okwara. However, he registered 93 quarterback pressures over his last 2 seasons. And he's got side-to-side quickness. People also say that he's very capable of being good in coverage with his athletic ability. And he may be one of these prospects that takes off in the NFL. I've seen some people compare him to Leonard Floyd, things like that. Round 2 is certainly worth a gamble, in my opinion, if he falls to the New York Giants. But let's pull up a few more things. The scouting report on Okwara. A speed rusher that excels on the edge and in space where he can use his athleticism to dominate. Has an excellent jump off the snap and is most productive when he gets on the outside of his blocker, using his balance, speed, and bend to get around and to the quarterback. Looks very comfortable in coverage and in space and will be looked at very closely as an outside linebacker in a 3-4. Has very good length, but if he stays on the edge in a 4-3, will need to add some bulk to his frame to stand up against the run. Thrives with speed for now, but he needs to develop more technique. So there you go. He's still a little bit raw, which is another reason why I'm sure he's being projected not to go early first round and may go late first, early second, which is where the Giants will be picking. So we'll have to wait and see if he does fall there. But there you go. He's a bit of a prospect, and people think if he's going to be versatile, like Joe Judge may want, he may want to put on 10 pounds of muscle and get up to the high 250s so he could play on the D end as well in a 4-3 alignment. But certainly has the size, the speed, the ability to play as a 3-4 outside linebacker at the pros. I think he could be solid in coverage. I think he could be, great at getting after the quarterback. So we'll have to wait and see how that all plays out. Next thing. Okwara is another long, lean pass rusher, standing at about 6'4" and weighing in at 247 pounds. Like some of the previously named players, Okwara has the ideal frame for a starting edge in the pros. On film, his long frame comes in handy when beating opposing tackles, as Okwara probably has some of the best bend in the entire 2020 NFL draft class. With added burst to boot, Okwara is one of the most talented defensive prospects in this class and is deserving of more praise. As it stands right now, he could hear his name called fairly early next April, and I think that came out probably mid-season this year. He was on a list. Some college analysts came out with a list of the freakiest athletes in the NCAA, of which Okwara was ranked, I think, 10th out of 50. And when I read this, I was like, wow. As was the case with Pride, who was a teammate of Okwara's. It is Okwara's speed that has him on this list, with a special boost for his 6'5", 241-pound frame. Okwara can achieve a top speed of 21 miles per hour. So he should have no problem running down a running back from Toledo, I suppose, talking about his game against Toledo. But there you go. I mean, that's the type of speed that you expect from really speedy wide receivers. This is a edge rusher, a defensive end coming at you. Next thing I want to pull up was this. This was talking about his injury. A broken left fibula suffered in a 38-7 rout at Duke on November 9th ended his Irish football career and put him on the schedule, in which he wore a regular shoe on his left foot for the first time since the injury on Christmas Day. He was cleared to run for the first time beginning next week and deferred most of the combine's physical testing by roughly a month. So there you go. So he wasn't training he said he wasn't going to start training for the combine until January. That was written in December, but by all accounts, from what I've read, he will be ready to go in a couple of weeks for the combine, and hopefully he's ready. He's fresh and ready to go. And then finally, the worrisome thing is that he only had 3 total pressures on 43 pass rushing snaps against Mekhi Becton and Andrew Thomas this season. Of course, those are 2 of the top 3 or 4 offensive tackles in this year's draft. He matched up against both of them with the Fighting Irish. He was also fairly hot and cold this past year, with 2 or fewer pressures in 5 of the 9 contests he played in. Okwara usually needs a head of steam to work his moves and could be seen as a designated pass rusher only at the next level. So there you go. I wanted to show you guys some of the good things and some of the bad things that people have to say about him and why some people, have him going where he's going. I think the injury definitely plays a part. I think he's still a little bit raw. You look at Unique Ngakoue. Unique Ngakoue is probably very similar to him coming out of college. He's kind of still similar. A guy that a lot of New York Giants fans want. He's pretty much a pure pass rusher. He struggles against the run, things like that. Only difference is you're drafting this guy, and obviously he doesn't have the level of production that you may want in a prospect that you'd be looking at, for the New York Giants. So we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. But I am a big fan of Okwara if the Giants could grab him in the early second round. I don't necessarily think he's going to be there when it all plays out. for the simple reason that I think he's going to have a killer combine. He's certainly going to be a player that I have my eye on at the combine. I think he's a player that you should have your eye on as well. Fits the scheme perfectly as a 3-4 outside linebacker. Like I said, I know they'll be versatile, but I think he's also a guy that could drop back in coverage. They kind of have a player like this that's a freak athlete with Lorenzo Carter, but I think he's a little bit more polished than Carter was coming out of Georgia. And we'll see if the Giants are able to grab him in the early second round or if that's where he goes at all. As always, guys, if you liked what you watch, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.